Remembering, said the one-word text from, thank goodness, out-of-state, unhappily married ex-lover Big Rig that instantly recalled every touch they gave each other. Unlike some men she knew, Big Rig never bragged about his manhood or fished for praise of it because that was not what was most important to him in their interaction. Big Rig wanted to please Lucinda. Truthfully, he wanted to please his wife. Lucinda was simply her stand-in, and she knew it. He loved and married the woman he thought was a nice person. But his wife was not a nice person, and he just now understood that. Only his marriage was worse than that. Having a difficult time accepting the reality of his situation, Big Rig was. 2 teenage girls, a mountain of debt incurred to get things that the wife said was necessary to make her smile and be happy with him, and the payoff? He wouldn't be sorry, wink, wink, no sirree. But he was sorry, because now, barely able to breathe financially, he couldn't divorce her ass without completely ruining his daughters' lives. But isn't that what adults do? Sacrifice themselves for the children? Of course it was. He had 2 years more before the youngest graduated from high school. He was already lining up grants for college because, hell, woman, he said to his wife, we don't have the money, do we? His wife, ridiculing, sneering, and scornful, carried his humiliation further with insults to his manhood. His manhood! His manhood? Oh, woman, I've got the manhood. You, bitter woman, don't want it. And so, with that conversation under his belt early that morning as he left for work, he stewed and fumed and seethed and raged internally while smiling at his customers and closing deals and calculating commissions. But as soon as he was in the privacy of his car, the darkness came upon him again. As happens in all darknesses, faraway bright lights can be seen easily and quickly. Big Rig's light was Lucinda. Lucinda, who he put out of his mind because her light was too bright for his darkness. Lucinda, whose need for giving and receiving was as strong as his own. Lucinda, who was too damn far away to see every day, thank God. Lucinda, who he needed to know, remembered him as a man. Remembering. Oh, God, did he ever remember? Their first walk, stride matching stride. Their first talk, mind meeting mind. Their first lay, body touching body. Their first bliss, laugh joining laugh. Their first goodbye, silence bearing silence. He took that memory home and he poured it all into his marriage, as Lucinda told him to, and nothing. He may as well have stood naked in the middle of the interstate holding a placard that said, I dare you to hit me. Kill me, please, because I'm too cowardly to do it myself. At least that would have gotten him some attention. 6 o'clock news. Hey, if it bleeds, it leads. And he was bleeding. Only it was his heart. And bleeding, broken hearts aren't newsworthy unless a tractor-trailer ran over it during rush hour. So all the good Lucinda gave him lasted 6 months at home, and then he had no more to give. But he couldn't call her no. Because, you see, bright lights, even faraway pinpricks, can blind in absolute darkness. He had to think of his girls. So he didn't text Lucinda. He didn't call her or think of her except every now and then as he saw her name on his company's internal communications. Even then, no one could guess what he was thinking. Remembering. And a year passed. Then there she was again, and he tried so hard to smile and act like everything was great and awesome and wonderful. And she saw right through it. and standing in the lobby of the hotel where the conference was being held, he almost crumbled as she asked, "Why are you lying to me?" Remembering. So they talked again. More accurately, he talked and she listened. For 2 hours he poured out his heart and frustrations and wishes and needs, and in the middle of the bar he wailed, "Am I not a man?" And in Lucinda's eyes was the understanding of kindred souls, because this is what she had lived in her marriage for so long. He was merely 10 years behind her in that process. She knew the outcome. When his knee touched hers under the table, he completely forgot what he was saying, and his eyes closed, and he couldn't breathe. When he could finally open his eyes, he looked at Lucinda, and he asked, "What?" She said, "Oh, baby, you know." And looking through his darkness at her light, he said, "Really?" And she nodded. And 10 minutes later, they were in her room, starting up where they had left off 1 year previous. Naked though they were then, they had not made love. Lucinda couldn't do that yet. He didn't quite understand it. But he was laying with her naked body and stroking her and laughing, and that was more than he had had in the previous 5 years with his wife, so he wasn't going to complain. Remembering. But this time, when the door closed to her hotel room, there was no mad rush to rip off clothes and jump into the bed and bang her brains out. Silently, they slowly undressed each other, as if unwrapping 2 long-awaited-for presents. The only thing to be heard was their breathing. When their bodies were undressed, she had taken his hand, led him to the bed, pulled the covers down, and then they were laying. And that is when he saw how deep the deprivation in her was. She became worried. She never said it, but she was no longer in her heart. She was, how could he explain it? She was in her head. Sex became for her at that time an intellectual process. Do this, get that result. Do that, make this happen. Get it over with. She wasn't happy, and he saw it. She was on top of him, servicing him, of all things. Servicing him! What her marriage must have been like! Oh, God in heaven, such a woman should not have been made to frantically service anyone. He said, Lucinda, look at me. He took her arms and he held them until she stopped moving. Look at me, darling. He waited until he saw her focus return from a faraway place to the room and then to him. Lucinda, you are with me. I am with you. Relax, darling, relax. And she fell upon his chest and cried and wailed, I don't know how, which meant, am I not a woman? He spent the next 2 hours answering that question for her. For the first time in her life, she felt the power of a man who loved a woman and who was in no rush to stop telling her how wonderful she was and that it was an honor to be in her presence. They slept briefly because, as starving people, they needed more and knew their window was small. They had until the dawn when they would have to put on their professional smiles and be other things. All night they took turns waking and pleasuring the other. Remembering. Then another year passed and 6 more months, and he came to her town on business. Didn't tell her he was coming. Didn't call her all week. Until the day before he had to leave, and the need could not be denied. And then his phone was in his hand, and she was in his room, and they had another night of blissful comfort. Remembering. Why now would Big Rig text Lucinda the one word that could tear her to pieces? It had been more than 3 years since she had seen or heard from him. Gordon was gone over a year, but not far from her thoughts. And James was firing her up in ways she didn't want to happen, but couldn't seem to stop. Why now, Big Rig? What is going on with you? You need me again. Was he in town? If he was, could she say no to him? No, she couldn't. The thought horrified her. Was she still that needy? Yes, she was. Lucinda did not immediately reply to that text, but finally, unable to resist any longer, she sent her reply. Yes, I remember. When her reply came in, Big Rig was overjoyed. He was remembered. And sometimes, that's all a man needs.
That night I was his woman. He was my man. We rode a wave of love to our promised land. Oh, to our promised land. Hearts bleed. Our eyes chose the tempo. Our bodies wrote the song. Our hearts left this world